there's a part of me that wants to give my life to something completely, even if it's not about me. Back in 2015, I was a pastor at a church in Colorado, and I had the chance to go and visit one of our church plants in Germany. They were planting a church in Cologne, Germany, so I had to go out there and visit with the pastor there, visit with his family. And anyone ever been to Cologne, Germany, by chance? Oh, all right. More than I expected. It's not like premier tourist destination. It's not exactly the Caribbean. Very beautiful old city. But if you have been to Cologne, Germany, you ever go, you just look at a postcard, you Google it, you're going to notice something about that city right away. You are going to notice the Cologne Cathedral. And there's a reason you're going to notice it. It's ginormous. It's absolutely massive, old, Gothic cathedral right there in the heart of the city. It dominates the landscape. Actually, we have a photo of the Cologne Cathedral right here. There you see it. Just beautiful, old, Gothic cathedral. Absolutely stunning. It was completed in 1880, 515 feet tall. And when it was finished, actually, for a while there, for about a decade, it was the tallest building in the entire world. So I see this when I get to Cologne. Whoa, that's amazing. I admire it from a distance, snap a few photos. I honestly don't think too much of it, though. I'd spent a little bit of time in Europe previously when I was younger. And if you ever go to Europe, you're going to kind of notice something pretty quickly. Europe is lousy with churches and old cathedrals. Just old buildings everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's an old cathedral. So after a while, they start to blend together. So huge building, very impressive. It wasn't until my last day there, the German family I was staying with, they said, look, you've got to take the tour. We have this great tour guide. We know you've got to take the tour. You have to learn the history behind this epic Gothic cathedral. Okay, sure. So I go and I join up with a few other tourists, and there's this local German woman who is taking us on this tour, and she does the typical tour guide thing. She talks about the art, she talks about the architecture, talks about the flying buttresses and the stained glass, everything you would expect from a tour from an old church. Now, I think she's going to lead us to the top for the grand finale, right? The grand conclusion, but she actually takes us to the top, and we get to look out over the city pretty early on in the tour. So I'm kind of wondering, well, how's she going to wrap this thing up? Like, that's tough to beat. But she actually ends the tour by taking us back to where it all started. She goes back to the very beginning, to the foundation. And she goes to the cornerstone. And she shows us that first stone that was laid for this epic, massive cathedral. And we look at the year on that stone, and it's the year of our Lord, 1248. Do you guys remember when that building was finished? 1880. Now, for those of you who are not math people, that is 632 years. That's a long time. Over 6 centuries it took to build that one building. That is 3 times older than our nation. Like, that is 9 or 10 modern lifespans for the average American. How many lifespans was it for a medieval peasant? They were known to live a little bit shorter lives than us. It's a long time. Now, here's the funny part. She said, you might think these people were crazy to design and build something that was going to take that long. What you have to understand is that the people who laid the foundation of this building, they weren't dumb. They were brilliant. They were wonderful, masterclass designers, the math, the art. In fact, every subsequent builder of every subsequent generation honored those original plans as much as they possibly could. They had this huge, grand vision that they laid down that cornerstone in pursuit of. But she said this, she said, those folks were not foolish. They knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that they would never see that building finished. They knew their children would never see that building finished. And their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren, they knew it would take generations before anyone walked through the door of that church. She said, that seems kind of crazy to us. That's shocking to us. That shocking level of sacrifice and service and giving yourself to something that you're not even going to enjoy. And she let that sink in. And then she said something at the end of this tour, and it struck me at the time. It struck me so much I wrote it down all those years ago. And this is what this German tour guide said. I don't know how I feel about religion and churches and spending money on things like big fancy buildings. I really don't even know if I believe in God. But I want to believe in something the way those people believed all those years ago. There's a part of me that wants to give my life to something completely, even if it's not about me. Now, every time I tell that story, I try to think of what word captures that kind of life, captures that kind of belief, that kind of faith that she's talking about. Because if I'm honest, I want that too. I want that for my life. I think purpose is a good word. I want to live a purposeful life, pursuing something much bigger and grander than myself. I hope that's said about me one day. I think about a word like legacy. I hope I leave a good, enduring legacy. I hope the things that are said about me at my funeral are positive. I can think of some stories maybe I wouldn't want shared at my funeral as much. But I hope I leave an enduring and healthy legacy for the people after me. There's a lot of words we can throw at it, though, but I actually do think there's one word that captures that kind of faith, that captures that kind of life. And it might sound a little cheesy to you, but it's love. I think what she was describing was a life of love. Or specifically, to use a biblical term, it's agape love. Agape is one of the Greek words for love. There's a few different ones. Just like in our language, we like things, we love things. But agape was a special kind of love. It was divine love, heavenly love. It was sacrificial love. It was selfless love. And I think that kind of love and a life focused on that kind of selfless, sacrificial love, man, I think that does something to the human heart. I think that grabs our heart in some pretty incredible ways. We don't see it super often, but when we see it, we know it, right? It's that story, and there's so many of these stories like this. It's mind-boggling. It's the story of the soldier who throws themselves on top of a grenade just without a second thought to save their comrades. It's this instinctual, selfless sacrifice to protect others. I think about single parents in this way all the time. And the grind, the sun up to sundown grind for single parents. And you're probably not going to get that many attaboys or attagirls. You might not even get a single thank you all week long. But you are giving yourself to providing and protecting and caring for others. Why? Why would you do that? Sometimes you ask yourself that, laying in bed at night. But it's love. It's sacrificial, agape, heavenly love. Friends, that kind of love is powerful. That kind of life is powerful. And I think for us as a church, and I really think with all my heart for us as followers of Christ, that's the kind of life that we're pursuing. That's the kind of life we're chasing after, to live that kind of selfless, sacrificial life. That's what Jesus is building us towards and forming us into. Friends, I got some bad news though. It's not quick. It's not easy. There's no 3 life hacks to speed up your spiritual formation process. There's no 5 shortcuts to Christlikeness. To become like Christ, you need to live and love like Christ did. And the way we do that is by doing what the writer of Hebrews describes, by fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith, the one who started it and the one who's going to bring it to completion, the cornerstone and the finished product, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end.